howtoflip.net, where real estate investors learn how to work on their business and not in it, with the motto, always work hard, but never forget to work smart.
Hey, what's up guys? What's going on? What I want to do here is really go in deep and really go deep on this and really define what wholesaling is. Because a lot of people who either heard of wholesaling, they wholesale down, and they don't really understand what it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this into a lot of different industries, because a lot of different industries are similar to what we do here in real estate. And just so you can see, like, this is just business as usual. There's nothing different about wholesaling in real estate, and just like in wholesaling in other industries. So wholesaling is defined as when you can flip a house without having to fix it up. You can get a property under contract and quickly sell it to an end buyer for a profit. You can use two different methods to do this. Assignment method. Now, the assignment method is when assigning the contract is when you get a property under contract with a seller. Purchase and sale agreement with a seller. The contract you sign with the seller will give you the right to buy the property or assign the contract to another buyer. In order to do this, the contract has to have the following language after your name or company name that you're using to write the contract and or assign. For example, if your company name is ABC LLC, you will need to make it ABC LLC and or assigns. So you have the option to buy it yourself. You have the option to assign it to another LLC or another company to buy it, and so on and so forth. So that just gives you exit strategies and gives you options. Double close method. This is double closing is when you get the property under contract, but for some reason you cannot assign it. So this happens when you're dealing with bank-owned properties, or sometimes you're dealing with a seller that specifically tells you, I want this deal assigned. A lot of different ways. So what happens is, or maybe you're double closing because you don't want to see the end buyer, or you don't want the end buyer to see how much you're making. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. But what happens is the escrow agent will close the first transaction with you and the seller. So let's say you go to get the deal closed, they'll close it with you and the seller. And that's the A and B contract. So that's A to B contract. So you and the seller, we close that one. And then now at maybe the same day or the day after, you sign a contract, or you've already done this. You've already signed a contract with the buyer and you've signed a contract with the seller. But the escrow agent closes the first A to B contract. Now you own the property. So you close on that first one, but then you use the proceeds from the second transaction to close the first transaction. So you can sign another contract between you and the buyer, which is the B to C contract. All this happens the same day, and you can make the difference. So the difference between the both. So let's say you sign it for $1,000 and you double close it for $2,000. I know those are small numbers, but just an example. You make the difference, which is $1,000. So the reasons why you might not be able to assign are maybe the seller doesn't want you to assign it. It's a bank-owned deal, or you do not want the seller or buyer to know how much you're making on the transaction. So here's a quick illustration just to explain what it is. So the seller called you through your marketing and said, hey, I'm looking to sell my house, and I heard you guys pay cash for houses, and I don't want to go through a realtor just because maybe my house can't pass an inspection, and I don't think the bank will finance it. Okay, now we come over to the house. as the wholesaler, you, and then the seller's motivated to sell the house right now. You as a wholesaler, you get the property under contract for $250. So you have a contract with the seller saying we're gonna buy the house for $250,000. So then there's a cash buyer. You assign this property to a cash buyer for $260. So you have a contract with the seller, and then you have an assignment agreement with a cash buyer to take over the contract you have with the seller for $260. So you're selling your interest to buy the first transaction, buy the house in the first transaction. Okay, now wholesaler, you make $10,000 after the transaction closes. So after the transaction closes, you make $10,000. The cash buyer, after the transaction closes, works on the house, and let's say 2.5 months later, or 3 months later, he makes $40,000 after he rehabs the property and lists it with an agent, and then a family comes in and buys it, and now he makes $40,000. Seller made $250,000 after the transaction closes because her house was free and clear, and she made $250,000. If she would have sold with an agent, she probably would have made the same amount of money because she went through us, so we went through a wholesaler and a cash buyer where they didn't have to pay closing costs, they didn't have to pay all those realtor commissions and everything else. So it worked out for her, it worked out for the rehabber, and it worked out for the wholesaler. So everybody won. And that's how you want to do every single one of your transactions. You never want to do your transaction where nobody in this circle feels like they're winning. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to compare real estate wholesaling to the produce industry. So here's another diagram or another flow chart showing in the produce industry, there's a farmer. The farmer grows lettuce and sells 500 heads of lettuce to a wholesaler at $1.50 per head. These are just examples. These numbers might be exaggerated, or I'm just using it as examples so you understand what's going on. The middleman, this is a wholesaler in the produce industry, adds his dollar fee on the lettuce and sells it to the grocery store. So the middleman goes and gets the lettuce, and then he's the one who sells it to the grocery store. So for his services, he charges a dollar fee per head. Grocery store buys 500 heads of lettuce from the middleman at $2.50 per head. So the middleman got it for $1.50. He added his dollar fee for his services. The price now is $2.50, and he sells that to all 500 to the grocery store. So now the middleman makes $500 after selling all 500 heads because he had 500 and he made $1 off each head. Grocery store makes $500 after selling all 500 heads. So middleman makes $500, grocery store makes $500. And now a shopper comes in and buys the head of lettuce for $3.50. So now the shopper is able to go home, eat healthy, and they have a head of lettuce that they needed to make, their sandwiches at home. The farmer makes $750 total total after selling to the middleman at $1.50 for 500 heads. So $1.50 for 500 heads of lettuce, the farmer makes $750. That per right there, that's a typo. So everyone wins here. The middleman makes 500, grocery store makes 500, farmer makes 750, and the shopper goes home and makes her sandwiches with the lettuce that she just bought. So here's a real estate wholesaling similar to the pawn industry. I think this one is this is my favorite one because I understand the pawn industry, and the pawn industry is thriving just because, you know, someone has. I'll explain this, but let's take a look at this this diagram here. So we have the customer, and then we have the pawn shop, and then we have the retail buyer. So the pawn shop in this situation is a wholesaler, just like in the real estate industry. The customer in this situation is the seller of the home, just like in the real estate industry. And the retail buyer in this situation is like the rehabber. Okay, so, or you get the point. So the customer has an iPad she wants to pawn to get money that will help her situation. So this customer is motivated. There's something going on in her life where maybe she has to pay a speeding ticket. Something's going on where she has to pay something. So she's willing to give up her iPad and sell it at the pawn shop. The pawn shop tells the customer, this is the price I can give you for your iPad. And they usually pay about 30% of what the iPad is worth used. So they look it up on eBay and all these different sites, and then they pay 30%. They get it for 30% of that. And they tell that up front to the customer. And because of the customer situation, and the customer needs the money, they need to borrow that money or sell the house, or sell that iPad. They need the money. They sell the iPad to the pawn shop for $150. They take the $150. The $150, the speeding ticket was for $100. She sells it for $150. She pays the speeding ticket, and then she has $50 left over for whatever she needs to do. So she understands that she's taking a loss, but she just needs to sell it right now. Retail buyer. Now the pawn shop buys it from the customer. The pawn shop then cleans that iPad up, gets it ready, clears it out, and then puts it on its own shelves and marks it back up and sells it for $215. Now they're marketing that iPad for $215 on their own shelves, and a retail buyer comes in and buys that iPad from the pawn shop for $215. Now the pawn shop makes $65 for buying and selling that iPad. The retail buyer gets an iPad that he needed for his business presentations at a discount. So the retail buyer, he could have went to Apple and bought a brand new iPad, but he didn't really need a brand new one. He just needed just a working one so he can do his presentations for his business. So he got a sweet deal. He's happy. Pawn shop is happy. They made $65. Customer gets $150 to handle their situation, speeding ticket or whatever they need to handle. Everyone wins here, and everybody understood what was going on in this transaction. So that's exactly how the wholesale business works. So here's the property timeline in the wholesale business. The seller sells it to the wholesaler. The wholesaler sells it to the rehabber. The rehabber fixes the house and then sells it to the new buyers. But the new buyers need a bank to give them the money to buy it from the rehabber. And then now the bank owns that home, but they finance it to the new buyers. And if the new buyers pay cash, now they own that home. And this whole cycle can all start again. Like last week, I came across a house that I flipped like 2 years ago, and then now it's back on the market on a short sale, and then now it's back to the same cycle again. I got it under contract, wholesaled it, the buyer flipped it, and now those sellers defaulted on that home. It's back on the market it's back as a short sale, and then now it's back to the same motion that I just showed you guys. So that's about it, guys. And I will see you guys in the next video. Make sure you watch the first video I showed you. What is real estate investing? Watch that first and then watch this after. Alright guys, peace out.
Don't forget to visit howtoflip.net for training and up-to-date content that will increase your profitability because you increase your productivity. Also, remember to visit reiconnection.net, where real estate investors are more profitable because they collaborate instead of compete. And if you're looking to start doing a virtual wholesaling business, visit seattleJVprofits.com. This way you can increase your monthly profits outside of your market. Once again, always work hard, but never forget to work smart. Subscribe to this channel today. We will have more updates available every week.